Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick. How are you guys? We're here for the second day of recordings for all of these costings for X-Wing 2nd Edition. Yesterday I recorded the Rebel and Empire videos, and today I'm going to do this. So just a quick update. At this point we've had the Rebel video come out and lots of comments appear on that video. People have said, oh, you've missed a few things with modifications and that kind of thing. And I will talk about those during this video because it actually is relevant for some of these Scum ships we're going to talk about. And also, people have been pointing out that, hey, some of these files have actually been changing. FFG have fixed some of the errors in these documents. Look, that's all fine. We'll cover all of that information eventually. We're going to start doing list review videos and all that kind of stuff, and that will come up when we do those. So nothing to worry about there, guys. All of this is going to get talked about. But for the time being, we have all the stuff for the Scum faction. So let's make a start on this. Starting with the Aggressor Assault Fighter, the IG-88 ship. Cost 70 points, previously costed 72 points. Not much to talk about here. The change in the cost of the upgrades is actually going to affect this ship way more than the cost of the ship itself. So only a minor change there. It is worth pointing out though that IG-88A now works alongside other ships as well as just the other IG-88s. Anything with the calculate token like Forlom or Guri. I'm actually getting comments already of people saying, hey, it looks like the costings of Forlom, Guri and IG-88A is going to work. And yeah, I'm pretty keen to try that out myself. But apart from that, the ship itself hasn't really changed all that much. All the same upgrade slots as it previously had. Moving on to the Y-Wing for the Scum faction. And just like on the Rebel faction, we have a pretty significant point decrease across the board here. Cavill has gone down from 48 points to 42 points. Interestingly enough, he's Initiative 5, same as Horton Salm, but he cost 1 point less for some reason. I think the main reason for that is Horton Salm actually really plays into the Rebel strategy of having wingmen and making his effect more powerful as a result of flying in formation, where Cavill just has this effect of when he shoots out of arc, gets another dice. It's a really powerful effect, but it doesn't really seem to have a lot of list building potential like Horton Salm does. Apart from that, just like on the Rebel faction, our lowest costed ship has gone down to 16 points, which is awesome. Plus, now Scum Y-Wings have the illicit slot. I'm so happy to see that. Just like the Z95 and Hawks, it's now something that we have on the Scum faction. And look, I can kind of understand why it wasn't done initially. I mean, these were Republic fighters. These weren't really designed to be sort of highly customizable ships that the Scum faction used. They just happened to be floating around and some of the bounty hunters and pirates used them. But nonetheless, in terms of list building potential, I think this is a good thing. And I don't think it really pushes the power level of the ship too much. Illicit upgrades are fun, but there's nothing really too outrageous at the moment, especially moving into 2nd edition. So that's good to see. Oh, plus talent slots on Drea Renthal and Hired Gun. Particularly Drea Renthal I'm looking at. Looks like a really, really interesting pilot. Kind of opens up this new kind of archetype for the Scum faction of kind of having like a commander on one of your wingmen. Now, I spoke about archetypes the other day, and I didn't mention this, mainly because it's pretty much just Drea Renthal and Cass Scarlet that do this, and it's very narrow in the application, in that it only works with non-unique ships. So not really something that seems to be really pushing the faction in terms of archetype. But nonetheless, it's a ship I really want to brew with, and I'm very happy to see we have talents. Also, very competitively costed at 40 points. Should be a lot of fun. Moving on. Now, I have one ship I'm going to talk about soon, which I'm very concerned is massively overcosted. However, the customized YT1300, I am surprised at how cheap this is. Now, I know it only has 2 red dice. However, having said that, the title doesn't give it the ability to shoot with 3 red dice if your opponent's stressed, but that only costs 6 points. And I look at this and I think, wow, this seems very, very competitive. Now, on the face of it, none of these pilot abilities or these crew abilities that come in this pack really sort of scream massive build around, super powerful kind of thing. But nonetheless, the frame itself is so efficient, I feel like we could have a lot of brewing potential on this. Potentially even more so than the Rebel Falcon, which already has 3 red dice and more shields and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, this actually surprised me. I thought this was going to be at least a little bit more expensive than this, or the title was going to be way more expensive to kind of make up for that. Han Solo 54 points. Very, very competitive. Now, I don't have a 1st edition thing to compare this to. The Scum Falcon is somewhat of an anomaly. It's a 2 red dice, dual turret kind of thingamajig. Has all the same upgrade slots as the Rebel Falcon. including Illicit, which the Rebel Falcon also has as well, which is good to see. Talents on Lando and Han. Yep, sounds good. Now, we also have a couple of new pilots here, which were not previously revealed in the spoiler articles, being the freighter captain on the YT and in the escape craft Lando Calrissian. Freighter captain is our low-costed, non-unique pilot at 46 points. It just seems really, really solid. You can easily field multiples of these. You could theoretically field 4 of these. I don't know how competitive that's going to be. I mean, in first edition, we're having a little bit of success with 4 contracted scouts as a list. Kind of like a fringe meta list at the moment. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, just cheaper than I thought it was going to be. I thought this was easily going to be, I'd say comfortably 5 more points across the board than what we're seeing here. Speaking of the escape craft, yes, we have everything here. Lando is 26 points, and the autopilot drone is 12 points. Okay, when this was first revealed, I made the comment that this has to be dirt cheap to be worth playing. It basically, as a pilot, cannot function as its own. If you just fill it on the table, it will not get to your opponents by the time it blows up. And if you use it as an escape craft, you're essentially using it as kind of a smart missile. Although I don't think it's that smart because your opponents are so enfranchised to counter flight. It's just so easy to deal with. I don't think it's a strong ship. However, it's 12 points. You kind of can't ignore that outright. It might have a bit of list building potential. Maybe if you have a spare 12 points on your list, maybe. I'm still very hesitant to fly this thing, but it is worth pointing out. In essence, our cheapest ship on this is actually L337, and for the 3rd time, this is the cheapest ship in the game. Yes, L337's 22 points, less than the 23-point Academy pilot and Bandit Squadron pilot on the Rebellion. Seems really good. Plus, she has a talent, which is interesting. I don't really know what kind of abuse we can do with that. L337, like a lone wolf or something like that. I mean, it seems okay. The stats are all right, but the dial's pretty terrible. Like, the fact that this is 2 points cheaper than an Academy pilot doesn't make me think, oh, wow, this is going to be the new hotness. Like, no, an Academy pilot, in my eyes, is still way better than this. But yes, worth pointing out, it is the cheapest ship in the game. You just can't fill the whole swarm of them. They are unique. So, let's move on. Okay, the Fang Fighter. Now, I'm going to try my best not to sound like a salty by a Scum player, but oh man, is this expensive. Fen Rao at 68 points. Yeah, that's a lot. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I am perplexed by this. I don't really understand what's going on. Look, Fen Rao is a very good pilot, but he's not seeing meta play at the moment. And the ship has had an increase in points across the board, which again is very frustrating. Zealous Recruit at 44 points. Now, let's factor in the fact that the title from first edition is essentially baked into the ship. So previously, Zealot Recruit was technically 42 points. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was talking previously about how F50 want to cost these on a bit of a curve. I kind of expected maybe Fen Rao to go up a little bit and the curve to dip down a bit lower. So like Zealous Recruit is a hair lower than he might used to be. I mean, I always thought it'd be great if we could get like 5 of them on a squad together with that title effect. Now there's no chance that'll happen. 68 points for Fen Rao. Yeah, guys, I'm not thrilled about that. It's the equivalent of 34 points in first edition. That's an increase. What did you used to be, Fen? Fen used to be 28 points. That's a 12-point increase in second edition terms. And also, what I think hurts most about this is it has no modification slot. Now, this has been the subject of a lot of contention right now. The Fang Fighter currently has no mod slot, despite the fact that in the pack comes the Afterburners card plus several quick build cards that do indeed give it the mod slot, use the Afterburners in those builds. Yeah, I can kind of understand the argument that don't necessarily reflect what the pilots have. In terms of trying to design quick build cards, they have to sort of fit into certain squad point costs, and trying to massage extra mods or less mods into those builds to kind of counteract that. I understand that, but getting Afterburners in the pack is, it feels like a bit of an insult because, man, this ship wants Afterburners so badly. If we go into Wave 1 and it's finalised and we can't use Afterburners on this ship, plus with this massive point increase, I'm going to say it. I think if this platform is like this moving into Wave 1, it's pretty dead on arrival. Fen Rao at 68 points. Look, if we had a massive points increase in other aces like Suntafel and all that kind of stuff, I mean, yeah, we do with Vader and the Inquisitor, but they're Force users, so they already have this great increase in their power level as is. Fen Rao doesn't. I'm trying not to be down on this. I don't understand what's going on here. I don't get it. In the interest of making this video a bit more positive, I'm just going to move on and forget about it. Moving on to the Fire Spray. Okay. Positive. Boba Fett, 80 points. He's had a slight point increase from 78 points to 80 points. I don't care. Only a 2-point increase with all the power level adjustments that this ship's gotten. I'm very, very happy to see that. Also, the lowest cost Bounty Hunter is 66 points, which is exactly the same it was in first edition. It was on the Empire faction instead of the Scum faction, but we don't really have a low-costed ship without a talent to compare it to, so I'm just going to compare it to this Bounty Hunter. Also, all the named pilots have EPTs, or talents as they're now called. Thank you so much, FFG, especially Eamon Azameen, who was previously 72 points up to 76 points. I don't care. That's well worth getting a talent slot in my eyes. It was one of the biggest drawbacks of this guy in first edition, so yeah, very happy to see that. I don't mind the slight point increase on all the named pilots. I think it's solid. Plus, we have confirmation they all get the crew slot. In fact, all of their slots are exactly the same as they were in first edition. Cannon, missile, crew, bomb, illicit can get the torpedo if you take Slave 1. One modification and the whole plethora of titles it can take. Yeah, very, very happy with this. I'm annoyed about what happened to the Fang Fighter, but very happy with what happened to the Fire Spray, so I guess that balances out. Plus, yes, I know the Fang Fighter can be fixed later on. They can reduce those points. I just feel like they don't want to reduce it by that much. So yeah, checks and balances. I can understand what's going on here. Fire Spray is going to be nuts. Let's move on to the G1A Starfighter, and more good news for the Scum faction because this has had a very nice point reduction. Just bringing up here the Gan Finesman, which was our previously low-costed ship. Previously 50 points, down to 43, a pretty decent reduction there. But what's most significant here is Forlom and Zuckuss. Now, Forlom and Zuckuss actually now have the same initiative, despite the fact that they are costed differently. Forlom is more expensive. However, Forlom also worked with calculate tokens. He has that kind of synergy. I think his effect is going to be more powerful in general. He used to cost 54 points, down to 49 points, a 6-point reduction. Very happy to see that. And Zuckuss, who used to be the most expensive, so this is going to be very significant. 56 points, down to 47 points, a 9-point reduction. This is great. I previously stated that this platform suffered mainly because it didn't really do anything too special. Zuckuss in particular paled in comparison to Fen Rao. I mean, now Zuckuss cost way less than Fen Rao. But yeah, I like what these guys can do, what they can do together. It actually makes me want to pick up another one of these because I am considering flying a list with both of them. But what I think is most significant about this information is the fact that Forlom is now cheap enough to fly alongside IG-88A and Guri. And a lot of you guys have already suggested that in the list down below. So awesome. Apart from that, we haven't lost any of the slots on the ship. No, and we still get a cannon slot if we take the title. Sounds good. Lots and lots of fun. Okay, moving on to the Hawk. Oh, previously I forgot to mention this has gained an extra mod slot. I should have mentioned that in the Rebel video, so sorry about that, guys. Apart from that, it's lost its turret, but its primary weapon has become its turret, so that's all fine there. Our highest costing dude, Palob Goldali. Previously costed 40 points, now he's down to 38. However, previously Dace Bonarm was our most expensive pilot at 46 points, down to 36 points. Wowee. He's still the highest initiative pilot. It's just that that ability has been given less weight. Palob was pretty much the only pilot that ever saw any kind of meta play on the Scum faction, so that's probably fair enough. Dace Bonarm, regardless, has had a bit of an increase in the power level of his ability. I think just dumping on more ion tokens is a good thing. And the cost of Spice Runner hasn't changed, so just a points reduction in the upper echelons of the spectrum of these pilots. Okay, let's move on to the Jump Master, which has pretty much had no change in its costings whatsoever. Dengar, 64 points first edition, 64 points second edition, relatively speaking. The Contracted Scout's gone from 50 points up to 52 points, so you can't field 4 of them anymore. I'm pretty sure that's the only reason that happened. Yes, the modification slots. It's had the Torpedo added to it, good to see. You still need to take Punishing One if you want that Astromech slot. But yeah, look, the fact that this hasn't had a point reduction pretty much says to me that this isn't going to perform that well in the first stages of second edition. Look, I'm honestly not going to complain too much about the Jump Master. It had such a good run in first edition. Was so powerful for so long, survived so many nerfs. It doesn't feel like it's gotten a significant nerf in regard to what it already had in the later stages of the first edition. The fact that it has the Torpedo back now is good for the ship. I don't think it's going to make it crazy or anything like that. But yeah, I think what we're looking at now is Dengar with Punishing One is a nice combo, still has a decent amount of power, doesn't feel overcosted, doesn't feel particularly overly competitive either. But that's fine, that's fine. I think being a bit cautious with the approach to the Jump Master was the right call to make. More stuff I'm excited about, the Fang Fighter. So, it has retained its 3 modifications from the old Vaxi fix, plus a point reduction across the named pods. Cartel Marauder remains at 40 points, but Talonbane Cobra is now 50 points. Used to be 56 points, so a 6-point reduction there. Seems good. Now, this guy no longer has the ability to reduce the cost of all the upgrade cards on him, so that's kind of reflective of what Vaxi used to do. Just making the card itself more cheap is good. It kind of makes up for the fact that you can't reduce the cost of your stuff, but it does mean you can take a lighter build on Talonbane and he still can function. One of the things in first edition I always felt about this card was he really paled in comparison next to Fen Rao and other things that cost the same but was just better, more defensive, better arc dodges, all that kind of stuff. The power of Talonbane in first edition was all those kind of crazy modifications, the versatility. And now Talonbane still has that, but on top of that, he also has the ability to take less upgrades and not have to worry about getting all those point reductions. He already has the point reduction built into him. And at 50 points, it feels nice and competitive. Yeah, he's gone down to Initiative 5, but I think it's relevant, and that's a good thing. Graz the Hunter, I'm very glad to see at 47 points. I think it's a good spot for him. He now has a talent. He now has a much better pilot ability. Very grateful to see that. The only one without a talent now is Captain Justero, and look, that's fine. He's not really about talents. He's not about sort of combos with talents and that kind of stuff. He's about ordnance. That's what his platform demands, and yep, 43 points feels very, very good. He previously costed 48 points, so a 5-point reduction. Now, he had an EPT in first edition. It is worth pointing that out, so it is a bit of an adjustment based on that. But really cool nonetheless. Now, the Lancer Pursuit Craft. I'm going to say pretty comfortably for the time being, Asajj Ventress probably isn't going to see that much meta play. She's been costed all the way to 84 points due to the fact that she's a Force user, but the really powerful degenerative things she could do in first edition are much harder to achieve now. A lot of the cards that allowed for that just don't really exist in the same capacity they used to. Her ability's been dialed back a bit. The title doesn't work with her as well as it used to be. Plus, at this extra points cost, I think she's more about abusing force powers than anything else. She's not really about dumping stress and being a controller that she used to be. I think if we are going to see Asajj have those kind of builds in the future, it's going to have to be in the Lancer Pursuit Craft pack. Maybe we'll get a title for her Banshee ship, which would make sense because she is pictured here in the Banshee in second edition, so that could be cool. However, I will say, on this platform, Shadowport Hunter is down from 66 points to 64 points, so a slight point reduction overall. Ketsu Onyo was previously 76 points, now she's 74 points relatively. Which is good, considering Ketsu does work with the new title and everything the ship wants to be doing. I think this is really pushing to make her a lot more competitive. Plus, she's no longer the most expensive pilot. She doesn't have force abilities, but that's fine. I think that's good. I think that's a good costing for her. She was already seeing a little bit of play in the first edition meta, and I think just giving her a bit of a nudge along is a good thing. It sucks that her ship only shoots with 2 red dice at the mobile firing arc, but at the same time, I think that's fair. It's not really what her ship wants to be doing. She wants to line it up with the primary firing arc and shoot and tractor and all that kind of stuff. So, seems good. Seems good. I think Ketsu's cool. I think Asajj is just not going to be that competitive for the time being until we get some stuff that works with her. Alrighty, the Kimagilla fighter now. It would appear to me that FFG are trying everything to make this ship competitive because those pilot abilities and the ship costing has had a significant upgrade in power. Tyrannicola previously 54 points, now 50 points relatively. Seems really, really good. Dale and Oberos, for example, used to be 50 points, now 48 points. So a relative reduction on both those pilots and a nice upgrade to their abilities. Not much to say, really. Same upgrade slots, still retain a modification. Cartel Executioner still has his talent slot. Yep, seems good. I don't really have much to say about this ship other than I think it was more competitive than people gave it credit for in first edition. And I think just making sure it has a very light fix in relative speak to everything else that's going on, and it just continues to do what it does. I think in second edition it's going to be great, and I think it's something to look out for. Considering a lot of the things that really kept it out of the meta in first edition is being pushed to one side and everything's being balanced out again, I think the Kimagilla is going to be a serious force to be reckoned with. Okay, let's move on to the Skik fighter, which is a bit confusing because we're really jumping around with the costings here. Serazu, for example, was PS8, now Initiative 5, and used to cost a relative 40 points. Now she's 43. I will say, though, that Serazu, her ability looks really, really good in second edition. The fact that it can work with swarms, I'm very happy to see that. Now, previously I was very concerned about Genesis Red and his ability. The fact that he's Initiative 4, in an ability that really demands he be high initiative to have any kind of success, sucked. But at the same time, he costs the same as Leantin Ashra and Quinn Just, both pilots that have a lower initiative than him. And that makes me think, okay, well, maybe if he's affordable enough, we can just chuck him in there. Might be okay. At 35 points, yeah, I don't think he's great. I still think his ability is a bit too spiky. The fact that we can't put more guarantees in this by giving him VI or something like that. He has to operate at Initiative 4, which really sucks with that ability, unfortunately. But he is cheap. You cannot deny that. The buy-in cost for the frame of this, Cartel Spacer, where are you? Used to be 28 points, now is 29 points. So a slight increase. However, we do have the old title built in. So actually, relatively speaking, it would have been 36 points for the buy-in cost for this ship. And you can take any one of those modification slots. The extra hull's already built into the ship. So, yeah, a slight point decrease across the board. Seems good. It wasn't super competitive in first edition. I have no reason to believe this is going to really rock anything in second edition. But a nice subtle point decrease on a ship that wasn't performing is always a welcome thing. Let's move on to the Quadrajet Transfer Space Tug. The Quadjumper, in other words. I don't know why they had to change the name. I thought Quadjumper was quite nice. It rolled off the tongue nicely, one might say. Most notable thing about this ship is it still has the tech slot. Now, I assumed it wasn't going to because we don't have any tech cards in second edition yet. And we'll get tech cards when Wave 2 comes out. Which kind of sucks as a Scum player because I wasn't really planning on buying anything in Wave 2. So yeah, hopefully us Scum players do get access to these cards. Apart from that, all the same upgrade slots. Zuvio has the talent, none of the other guys do. Jakku Gunrunner. Let's just bring him up and compare the costings because now the Space Tug Tractor Array is actually built into the ship. 38 points. Standard 28 points. Woo, okay. That's good. Certainly a lot of people commenting about this, about how now it's much easier to field several of these. I completely agree. Jakku Gunrunner can get up to its tricks for a pretty low buy-in, which feels nice. Constable Zuvio with the Space Tug Tractor Array built in used to be 42 points down to 33 points. Yeah, wow. They've given this ship a nice push. I'm very happy to see that because I think it's a really fun ship, but I didn't think it needed this much of a points reduction. Apparently it did, you guys, so who knew? Now, the sad thing is you can't do the whole Cad Bane bomblet generator on it anymore, which hurts a little bit, but you know, bomblet generator isn't really what the quad jumper's about. It's about really annoying control on a platform so cheap your opponent doesn't want to shoot it. And I'm very happy to see that. I think the Jakku Gunrunner with its standard build of having tractor arrays and intel agent, although it would now be the informant and stuff like that, is still going to be a good option. Looking forward to playing around with that. Okay, let's move on to the Skirg H6 Bomber. Captain Nim, oh wow, you've come down a long way. Captain Nim used to be 60 points, down to 52 points. Now, I will say that Captain Nim doesn't have access to a lot of the nonsense that he used to. He now no longer has any torpedoes, any missiles. There is just a dedicated bombing platform. Seems fair enough. I mean, the whole thing with harpoon missiles was a big problem in first edition on a platform that was really meant to be about bombing. Still has a turret slot, but it can't take TLT. It doesn't exist anymore, which seems fair enough. Also, Lock Revenant has lost the talent slot. So some pretty significant nerfings across the board. Nim has come down significantly in cost. Soul Sigza used to be 56 points, now 49 points. Still another drop in the costings. Can natively take the Bomber Generator. Is the kind of ship that wants to be taking the Bomber Generator. In fact, Bomber Generator on Cad Bane actually seems like a pretty good option for this guy. Although if you take Havoc, you can still do the whole Genius thing, maybe advanced sensors and fire control systems or something like that. Seems good. With the option of Cad Bane moving forward alongside the Bomber Generator, I get the impression that Havoc is not going to be the auto ad it used to be. Plus, Genius is not as good as it used to be. I did a whole video on that discussing how the timing doesn't quite work out anymore. But yeah, it's had a pretty significant cost reduction, but at the same time, a lot of the nonsense it did in first edition does no longer exist, so seems okay to me. If it's still problematic, they can always nudge it up a little bit to make up for that. The Star Viper. Now, this is very difficult to judge costings because some of the slots have been tinkered around with. Guri at 62 points. Previously, Guri was 60 points. Seems fair enough. Having the system built in is a pretty big deal for Guri. The fact of the matter is, any Star Viper you have can take advanced sensors right out of the gate, which is really, really good. I'm so excited for Guri in second edition. Now, previously, Prince Zaza was our most expensive pilot for this. He used to be 62 points, down to 54 points, but he's also had a reduction in his initiative as well. And that ability just never really saw play in first edition. It wasn't that powerful. So it seems fair enough. Cost matched with Dalen Oberos. The Black Sun Enforcer used to cost 50 points, now down to 46 points. But this is not taking into account the title in first edition, which would have made it 42 points. So in fact, it actually had a slight point increase. That seems okay to me. The fact that systems is built into it feels like a very fair trade-off for me. I don't think it's going to be about these generics, though. I think everyone has their eyes firmly looking at Guri at the moment. She looks fantastic. Look, 62 points is expensive. Starting off your ace build around the 60-point mark isn't exactly where you want them to be. But at the same time, it looks like she could be a platform that you could seriously push points-wise and perform. Initiative 5 just seems really good with the Star Viper. That curved barrel roll was so good in first edition, but it was somewhat held back by the fact that all of the Star Vipers had low PSs. So yeah, very, very excited about that. Let's move on to the YV666 Light Freighter, light being the operative word there. Interestingly enough, it did not have the gunner slot added to it. A lot of us predicted that it would, especially considering that Bosk is a gunner. Having said that, though, I think having the unique 3 crew slots, no other ship has that, and I really like the combinations, especially on the Scum faction, that allows us to have. Everything's been shaken up. I'm sure there's going to be some really dumb combo at the start of second edition that can use that. I don't think the loss of a gunner is really going to hurt this platform too much. Apart from that, all the same upgrade slots. Moralo, Ival, and Latsrazi both have talents. That was a big problem for them in first edition. Moralo Ival is actually more expensive than Bosk, which makes sense. He has the ability to sort of redeploy himself on the edge of the board. Plus, he's also initiative matched with Bosk and has a talent now, so I'm not going to complain there. Latsrazi, 66 points. Look, it is aggressively costed. I just don't love her ability. It wasn't that great in first edition. I don't think it's going to be much better in second edition, especially now that there's no ways to power out free target locks, so yeah, whatever. The Trandoshan Slaver previously cost 58 points, still does. Okay, fair enough. It's one of these ships that FFG have identified as being, okay, this is fine the way it is. We're just going to bring down the cost of the higher echelon pilots and keep the platform as a kind of a base kind of, this is okay in the game right now. Let's move on to the Z95 Headhunter, which has had no change in its modification slot. The Black Sun Soldier has gained a talent, which is always great to see. Let's bring up Nadru Salak. Previously was 34 points, now 31 points. Cool. No complaints there. Doesn't really have any craziness in second edition. Can't do like the whole Lone Wolf cluster missile thing anymore. He now only works on primary attacks. I still think that's good. I still think having a 3 red dice primary a lot of the time with this pilot is a good thing, so I'm not going to complain there. Kato Lichos, previously 30 points, down to 29 points. Good, yep. I like this ability in second edition. I like the fact that it works with green tokens, has a bit more flexibility. That's always good. Plus Black Sun Soldier. What did you previously cost? Because you now have a talent slot. 26 points up to 27 points. Seems like a good deal to me. That's a very aggressively costed talent slot. And the Binyari pilot still 24 points. No longer the cheapest ship in the game. We now have the Escape Craft and the Academy pilot and the Bandit Squadron pilot, all this kind of stuff that FFG didn't tell us about. They said the Academy pilot was going to be the cheapest guy in the game. Not that it really bothers me, but that's all good. The Nashtar Pup now cost 6 points. And the title for the Nashtar Pup on the YV666 only costs 1 point, so a much cheaper version of this ability. I still don't love the ability to deploy something when your ship's getting destroyed. I think, in general, I don't plan to have my ships destroyed when I list build, but it's cheaper, and that could be relevant. So definitely worth bringing up. Let's scroll down the page. Okay, onto these unique upgrades. Genius is 0 points, and I was not expecting this at all. I thought Genius would at least have 2 to 3 points tacked onto him, just to avoid some of the really annoying stuff he did in first edition. Look, the card is more related to risk and reward like he used to be. Captain Nim can no longer ignore his bombs, but he still does get a little bit of utility out of the fact that he can stop the Genius bombs from going off. Look, you have to pay for Havoc now, so yeah, I can kind of see the logic here. I just think FFG should have just hedged their bets and made this cost a few points just to make sure we don't have any nonsense like we did in first edition. Look, having said that, Genius is not in the place he was in first edition. He is way less powerful than he used to be. And that's fine. I'm not going to complain too much about that. R5 TK is worth 1 point. I don't really know why. I don't think it's a good card. I think this should have been 0 points and Genius should have been 1 point, if anything. R5P8. R5P8, now, interestingly enough, is kind of doing what Dengar in the crew slot did in first edition, where it gives you rerolls. There is a bit of downside. If you roll the crit, you suffer damage. It must be in your forward firing arc, and it only has 3 charges. Still, 4 points feels really good for that. Not a lot of things give us rerolls in first edition, especially in the entirety of the forward firing arc. Usually this is bullseye firing arc kind of stuff. And the fact of the matter is, Dengar wants to be doing stuff inside his forward firing arc to get those re-triggering shots. This seems like a decent card that sort of pushes Dengar a bit. Not that Dengar, in my opinion, is super competitive at the moment, but it seems like a pretty solid ad for that build. Let's move over to the crew, and a huge chunk of this is out of the Millennium Falcon pack. Tobias Beckett, Kira are both 2 points each. Seems very good for their ability. I made the comment that Tobias Beckett pretty much has to be cheap. He's a weird utility kind of card that might not be relevant all the time, so I'm glad to see that he's cheap. Kira, yep, that's interesting. Chewbacca gives you a kind of quasi-regen effect, so making him 4 points feels fair enough. L337 at 4 points feels really, really good. For the first half of that card alone, the fact that you get a panic button during one of your defenses is fantastic, and when she flips, you get to open up the dial on your ship. I made the comment that I want to try this out in the Fire Spray, and I still do. 4 points feels really good. Lando looks like a fantastic utility card. I don't care that he cost 8 points. The fact that you get a lot more use out of your green tokens is going to be good. Works really good with the Han Gunner card, who is also very affordable as well, I'll add before we go on to that. 000, 3 points. Yeah, Forlom, 3 points. Not much changes there. Boba Fett does not do anything like it did in first edition, so I can't really compare those. Chikatro Vizago at 2 points. Yep. IG-88D is 4 points now, but he has a bit more power, in that he now also gives your ship calculate tokens and gains you extra calculate tokens every time you do it. So 4 points feels fair to me. The only big outlier here is Maul at 13 points. I made this comment before. I don't think that ability is worth taking unless we get access to dark side upgrades, so we'll see what happens when they come out eventually when they do. Jabba has gone down from 10 points to 8 points, which is good because, frankly, Jabba was a bit overcosted in first edition. I don't know if this is enough to make him relevant. We now have a list on Y-Wings, could be relevant. Also, Jabba can go on Lando's Millennium Falcon. I just realised that. And Lando's Millennium Falcon is cheap. Okay, that's list building, guys. Get on that. That looks really good. Okay, not going to complain about that. In the gunner slot, Han Solo, 4 points. Yes, that is cheap. That is, very excited to play around with that. I love that ability. I think the biggest cost with Han Solo is the fact that he takes away the gunner slot from your ship. If you put him in a fire spray, you need to take Marauder, and then you can't take Slave 1, but Marauder is much cheaper than Slave 1 anyway, so that makes sense. Bosk is 10 points, but Bosk is the only Scum gunner that can give you multiple shots. However, he doesn't have nearly the utility of any of the Rebel gunners because it must have missed the first shot. He's kind of like the first edition gunner in that regard, and oddly enough costs the same. BT1, Dengo, and Greedo are all kind of utility cards, but Greedo, interestingly enough, the fact that he interacts with your initiative now, 1 point feels very, very competitively costed. For Greedo. Now, there is downside if your opponent gets to shoot your ship first. So be wary, because if Greedo ever makes it into the meta, Han Solo on the Rebel faction is going to be a much more desirable thing to take. So there is a little bit of risk built into it, but I think it can be strongly negated by taking pilots with high initiative. So that feels really, really good. Fearless has gone up to 3 points. It was previously 2 points, and the fact of the matter is the power level of this card went down. Never really saw much meta play. I mean, I loved using it on Boba Fett. I think it's a lot of fun. I think I still will try and do that. But seems a little bit harsh for a card that really wasn't performing all that well. Oh well, it is modifying dice, and I will give FFG the fact that a lot of things that modify dice have been really reined in, so I guess from that point of view it is fair enough. Moving on to the ship titles, Lando's Millennium Falcon, very competitively costed at 6 points. I think if you fly one of these, you'll pretty much always take it. RG-2000 is 2 points. I mean, whatever. All the pilots are cheaper anyway, so that doesn't really make much of a difference. Marauder is 3 points, giving the fire spray a gunner slot. Very happy to see that. Andrasta is 6 points. However, Andrasta gives the fire spray the reload action, which is going to be very relevant with bombing, so I think that's well worth it. Slave 1 is 5 points. Mist Hunter, same as it was on 2 points. Moldy Crow, as we previously mentioned, is 12 points. It gives a lot of power to one of your Hawks, so I'm not going to complain about that too much. Punishing 1 has had a massive points reduction, but it's also had a massive power reduction. It used to be 24 points all the way down to 8 points, but it only gives you another dice in your forward firing arc, and only really works that well with Dengar. So I think this is going to help Dengar see play. FFG want those iconic bounty hunters being played in the Scum faction, so I can understand why making this competitively costed makes a bit of sense. Seems good. Shadowcaster is the same as it ever was at 6 points. Havoc's at 4 points, and this makes me a little bit less worried about Genius, because now you can't take Genius on your Scourge Bomber for free. So that seems good. Just a slight increase to the points can have pretty significant repercussions in list building. Virago with 10 points, I don't care. Virago looks really, really good. A lot of great utility for that ship. However, it no longer adds any of the slots. There is no way to give your Star Vipers listed slots. They don't come with it, and they don't get it from Virago, which seems fair enough. I don't know if this is an auto add-on Guri. With Guri, I'm looking mainly at advanced sensors, but the fact that it gives you more action utility is fantastic. I'm so excited to fly the Star Viper. And Houndstooth is 1 point, but you have to pay more for Nush to Pup anyway. And that's everything on the Scum faction. Sorry if I missed anything. If I did, it'll come out in later videos. We've got a lot more to talk about. In the comment section, guys, post your lists. Let's get the ball rolling. I already have a lot of great submissions from the first couple of videos. Thank you so much for that. Let's keep it going. Let's get some list review videos going. Let's try and break second edition before it even comes out. In the meantime, like and subscribe. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, and I will catch you guys later.